Hi, I'm John Tavares, and I'm a forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I'm Domi, and I'm also a forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs. For me personally, it's super cool to be sitting here with John because he's a guy I've looked up to for a large portion of my hockey career and even before I turned pro. And on-ice stuff aside, obviously everyone knows how good of a player he is. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point, but what he does off the ice and how well he takes care of himself is something that I've always admired and looked up to. And as a pro athlete myself now and as a type 1 diabetic, I've always looked for certain ways to gain that edge or optimize my health in any way I possibly can. And nowadays there's all kinds of stuff out there with just people are throwing stuff at you, social media, you're exposed to a lot of different things that are out there. So it just so happened that, I came across a couple ads years ago, like a long time ago actually, long before I knew John, and when Aries Tech kind of came in front of my face, I was like, wow, this is interesting. It was something that I knew absolutely zero about. I'll be the first one to admit, but EMFs are something that I obviously do believe in are an issue and something that have to be looked at and monitored. And I have it on my phone everywhere I go. Again, like I alluded to earlier, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so the modalities and stuff that I have with my glucose sensor and my insulin pump, I have to have my phone on me. There's no question about that. So I have a little patch that goes on it that is obviously helping me in any way it possibly can. I do wear a necklace sometimes on my keychain. We fly a lot, so whenever I'm flying around, that's another area where you got to take care of yourself. And yeah, so it's super cool to be here with John talking about it because this is just how we live. There's no force on either ends here. Like, this is what we do. We do it on a day-to-day basis, and it's just part of our lives.
Well, first, to be sitting with a great friend and teammate is always special, and me and Max have crossed paths even before we played together. Obviously a great hockey player, but I think the commitment to elite performance and the importance of that on and off the ice, we've crossed paths many different ways in this space now too. So for me, it's been an evolution, I think, as an athlete, but as a person. As I broke into the league professionally and trying to learn about how to get better and perform better and be more consistent, it's been a realization, all these different types of things that you try to do to maximize yourself mentally and physically to play well and perform well, you realize make you feel good on a day-to-day basis just as a person. And it's made a big impact on me, I think. Just the way that you want to feel, the way that you want to take care of yourself, and all the things that you're learning from different people, different things, different modalities that can kind of get added into the routine that can go a long way and make an impact. So, for me, being introduced to Aries Tech, by a therapist a few years ago, and just started educating me about the space a little bit, and just how difficult the stress can be throughout the hockey season or just through daily life that we deal with, being on airplanes, different hotels, phones on us constantly, different devices that we use. Just a real low-hanging fruit, something that can impact your health and your recovery on a daily basis that maybe not something that you notice all the time, but has an impact over a long season or year to year. And even for myself being, a father now, 3 young kids, a lot of different things that much more beneficial that have helped me and my wife with our kids, whether it's different monitors, cameras and things as you have young babies and you're trying to nurture and care for them, and always wanting to have a sense how they're sleeping, how they're doing, but all these different things that are always kind of around them that weren't part of society or part of life a long time ago, or certainly my parents didn't have. So you're always kind of aware of these things and try to educate yourself and understand and do the best you can to take care of yourself and your loved ones. So it's been a journey just over my career as an athlete and as a person to continue better my performance, and then also better my health and take care of myself as best I can. Once you kind of establish different things you do, other types of things that you use on a daily basis for performance and recovery, I think just the blend of everything together, you just notice to feel much more consistent, mental clarity, better sleep, all those types of things that you're trying to, the boxes that you're trying to check on a daily basis as an athlete and trying to perform at a high level in the way you want to feel. And there's so many different variables, different types of stress that you're under. Conditions are always changing. Our schedule is all over the place. You're trying to be as consistent as you can be with how you feel, how you think, and having the energy that you need to go out there to perform, and also to be a husband and a father.
For me, I'm by no means a scientist, not going to try and wear that hat today, never will. There's a lot smarter people along the way that created this product that had nothing to do with me, but I'm the beneficiary of it, and as are you. But as a pro athlete, a lot of I mean, the perspective that most people see is the fans' perspective, and you see the puck drop at 7 p.m. or 7:30. The game ends at 10. But for us, and John and I in particular, two guys that really enjoy taking care of ourselves and going the extra mile to make sure we're at our best for any given day and any given game to optimize our performance. That's around the clock, so it's 24/7. And as you said, it is a low-hanging fruit, but even more importantly, it just becomes part of your routine. And there's all kinds of stuff that we have in our little checklist that we go through on a day-to-day basis, and everyone's checklist is a little bit different. But for me, it's something that as soon as I started doing it, I felt better. And I'm more of like an action guy, not much of a word guy. So someone can tell me all they want to hear, but until I try it and see the results, it doesn't do much for me. And this was a product in particular that I tried and noticed a big difference right away. And it's something that has been part of my routine for the last 5-6 years, whatever it's been, and I've never really even thought of taking it out because I don't need to. If it works, it works, and it's a big part of my daily basis. So
I think to piggyback off your point, I think especially as we talk about a lot of stuff and how we're feeling, different things we're doing, how we're trying to improve performance or just overall how we feel, how we recover, different things that we do. It's amazing how in tune you become with yourself, right? And the different things that you notice, and even a product like Airstech, even something that you may not notice on a massive scale, but just on a day-to-day or a consistent basis or for a longer period of time.
We always talk about it. It's like the accumulation of everything, right?
Yes, exactly.
Everything we do, and it all has a little piece of the puzzle, and each piece is just as important as the next one, you know?
Exactly.
And the consistency of doing it and the discipline of consistently doing it is what makes you.
100%.
And on top of that, I mean, you can talk about it as much as you want, but your checklist is way more extensive than mine for different reasons because you have a whole family at home. You got an army of kids. So I'm actually curious, how does that work with you at home? Like when you wake up in the morning, what are the first few things you do?
Yeah, first few things in the morning, I always try to get up a little bit before the family as best I can. So obviously going to bed early is important, and trying to deal with the difficulty of that in season because obviously we're playing late, we're traveling late, then trying to go to bed the night early, and how your things like your circadian rhythm can get thrown off and whatnot. But for me, the 30 minutes, 45 minutes before my kids get up, my family gets up in the morning is really important, just to get a few wins for myself. Obviously an important night of sleep, but best you can, important light exposure, hydrating with some water first thing in the morning. Depending on the day and the situation, whether it's a cold plunge or some of the red light therapy that I like to do, and that I know you like to do as well. You try to hit a few of those things first thing in the morning. Even some things I like to do from
your nutrition too, like that's a big thing.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Everything you put in your body is rocket fuel.
Yeah, that's something we love to talk about is just our rocket fuel. So yeah, and that's usually when the kids get up. We always really before the day kind of can get going, get away, or if I'm playing at night, we always try to have breakfast as a family together. It's kind of a good way to start the day, and knowing that whether we're traveling or I play that night, I'm not going to be there for dinner with the kids and my wife. So breakfast is always kind of a real focal point for us. So, but those are a few things I always like to try to do. I know for you, a few things you like to do, some of the stretching and different things like that. So just how you like to get.
But the sacrifice for you is something that I admire so much, and not just you, like any other pro athlete or really anyone that's a parent. I mean, I have a very good relationship with both my mom and my dad. They're both my two best friends in the world. But looking back at all the sacrifices they made just so that I could have the best opportunity to live out my dream. And having the perspective of a son of the guy that played in the NHL for the same team that we play for, and now living out that dream is something that I got to pinch myself pretty frequently because I'm like, this is wild. I used to walk in this dressing room as a kid, and we always talk about that. I'm like, man, this is nuts. Really like the cold tub and the hot tub. I'm like, I used to do cannonballs there when I was a kid. So there's a lot of cool things, but I applaud you so much because it's so amazing. Like when I wake up in the morning and we just had a back-to-back, we didn't get in until 2 a.m. And like you talk about, our circadian rhythms are all out of whack completely. I am gassed. And I'm like, I can't imagine waking up 30 minutes prior to that. And not only 30 minutes prior, but having to deal with 5 other people and then putting yourself second to that. That to me is something that's truly incredible. And that's where all the stuff kind of comes together. And your discipline and your consistency with that is what makes you such a good leader, because no matter what's going on, you always get your stuff in, and that's what makes you so special, because it's easy to do things when it's convenient for you. It's very difficult to do it when it's not, and you are a spitting image of that. So I I definitely have so much respect for you for that.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
But that's where I talk about, when you're younger, you're so focused and inundated with yourself, and you're so focused on performance and playing well, and then you start to connect the dots a little bit of like, well, I feel pretty good every game day because of these things that I'm doing. It's really important to do these things every single day, as I just feel good. I love waking up, mental clarity, having the energy, and not having a young family, 3 kids under 5. Just the mental clarity and energy, and being in the right headspace and doing everything you can for them.
Yeah.
It all kind of blends together. So it's almost made me a better athlete because of that.
For sure.
And in a lot of ways, it's you realize, what was I doing with my time back before I had kids? Just the things that I was doing, and the free time that you had. So now you got to be just ultra disciplined and diligent and things like that. And I know you don't have kids, but I know you're understanding that because your experience,
Absolutely.
growing up with your dad and going through it all, and all the knowledge you've gained. And like I said, the time we spent together, even before we played together, always picking your brain and how aware and cognizant you are of that stuff. So I always commend you for that. And someone I always lean on to get feedback from, get some opinion from.
We do have great conversations.
So some
late night conversations at the hotel.
Yeah.
But I do have, so kids aside, like one question for you that I think whoever's watching or listening would find this super interesting. Like I said, forget about the family and all that stuff just for a split second when you're answering this. How much has, John's played over 1,000 games in the NHL, which is one of probably 80 guys, 100 guys have done that?
I think it's closer to 300.
300? Okay, sorry, 300 guys. But still, in the broad scheme of things, that's a very small amount of people and percentage of our population in the NHL. How much has your routine, just as a whole, your outlook on your day-to-day basis, how you prepare, how you recover, evolved over that 1,000-game, 15-year career so far?
Oh, quite a bit. And I think it's not only is new things, new science, different things that are coming about, just something like Airstech, let's say.
Exactly.
But also just the level of consistency and discipline and trial and error and ups and experiences, ups and downs, good seasons. I don't want to say bad seasons, but seasons maybe you felt you didn't have as good of as years you'd like to, or different things. Where you're at in your game, or where you're at as an athlete, and how you're trying to improve all those things. And talking to you, you've had different experiences. You've played on different teams, different organizations, and having to adapt to that and always have that type of change. I've been really beneficial that I've played in 2 places in my career, and I've been able to be really inundated with where I've played, and really been able to set up an amazing home, an amazing family that I have all the resources, everything that I need. Where at times I know for you, like when there's a lot of change, it's hard to be consistent, and I commend you for that, because you've really adapted really well on the fly. And now obviously thrilled to be playing with you and T.O. and being together. So how have you dealt with that, like having to deal with stress of playing in a new place, having to move, getting things set up? Because I know both of us really like things in a certain way and like to be into our routine so we can be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, you learn pretty quick, as we always talk about, like, no one wants to be comfortable and complacent, obviously, but when you do get comfortable in certain things, your performance does flourish in some ways. But I also learned that it's okay to be uncomfortable too, you know what I mean? And when you get used to being uncomfortable, you actually get a lot of growth in certain areas. And for me, like, I value my relationship with my teammates more than anything. If I go to a new team, my first instinct is to get to know my teammates as quick as I possibly can, because I think when you step onto the ice, and we talk about all the time how fast our game is now, you have to have that connection that goes far beyond X's and O's of on a chalkboard of where to go here, where to go there. But for me personally, it was a battle. It was tough because I never actually felt comfortable in any situation, because like, man, like, this is nuts. This is a new room. There's a new training staff. There's new line mates. There's a new coach. There's a new rink, a new route to the rink from wherever I'm staying. I'm staying at a hotel for a bit. All that stuff just throws a wrinkle, and that's again where I really had to zone in on my to-do list that I had. I mean, first and foremost is my health, and as we talk about all the time. You always ask me questions. You're trying to learn. As a type 1 diabetic, there's a lot of things that I have to go through.
So I know you're always on top of different things to help performance, and I always go to you asking different things that you're doing or why you're doing things. So how did you first get started with Airstech?
Pretty similar to you, and I'll let you talk about your experience after. But we have a couple mutual friends that are super into this space and really dialed in with always trying to acquire these different aspects that can actually help performance. And I mean, we say performance, but that is obviously optimizing your health as well. And for us, we're lucky we can really grade it based off of performance on any given game day. But when I was first introduced to what EMFs were, like I'd be embarrassed to say I didn't really know much about it.
I'm with you. I had no idea till.
And when I figured it out, I'm like, oh, geez, I am on my phone all the time. I'm on the plane all the time. I have my laptop. I watch TV. I do all this stuff that, I mean, it's not necessarily good for you, but I didn't really realize how bad it was. And I don't say that as like, oh my God, it's gonna kill you. You gotta live under a rock. Like, that's the last thing that I would ever try and tell someone. But I'm like, if you want to live your normal life, there's actually tools that you can use nowadays to allow yourself to do that in a health and safe way.
Well, I think in performance and with health in general, I think technology's really helped.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of good things about it, and for you being a diabetic, and like you said, your monitors and having your phone is critical for you, right? It's absolutely necessary. But
it's everywhere. You can't hide from it.
But as the therapist that mentioned it to me, which I know you know him really well, just helped making me aware of Airs Tech and what it does and how being consistent with something like that can really help with just your overall well-being, and then how that impacts performance and all the stress you're under on a daily basis, not just from putting your skates on and going out there and playing and competing at the highest level possible in the sport that we do, but from travel to how late we're going to bed, the being in 4 different cities in 5-6 days, and you're just changing time zones, different beds, just all these different things that take you out of a normal cycle on a daily basis. And it's just something that can hopefully help with everything else in sync together, allow you to function as optimally as you can. All your systems are working together, so you can wake up feeling mental clarity and having the energy to go out there and perform on the ice, and then spending time with your loved ones, whether it's my family or your family. And it's just something that's very easy to do. To me, it's not something that takes a whole lot of time, effort, or energy. And once you become aware of these different things and doing it on a daily basis, you just notice the consistency in how you feel, and trying to make that as consistent as possible from day to day, because obviously you're trying to perform, but also just your overall well-being and how you feel.
And I think there's two parts of it too. Like, one being the obvious one, the science doesn't lie, and also, like we talked about, like, you feel better. I'm sorry, but I'll argue that with that. You feel better, period, full stop. The other side is the mental side of it. I mean, you talk about data, and everyone's huge on collecting heart rate and all this good stuff, which is fantastic. I mean, again, as a diabetic, I collect my CGM readings every single day, so I'm all for it. But the downside of that is you can really negatively impact how you feel.
Yes.
And when I first learned about all this stuff, like the TVs and the phone, Wi-Fi, and all this stuff that goes in with the EMF side of it, I was like a little bit scared, and I'm like, geez, like, this is like my life. I can't hide from this. And then once I realized how it works, it was like just a peace of mind, because all of a sudden I wasn't scared of it. I was like, okay, I'm doing everything I possibly can, and I have the best and most ideal tools to handle this harsh reality of the world we live in. So I think it's 2 points for me, just the mental side of it and getting through that, as well as the harsh science of the fact that this is 100% absolutely helpful.
Yeah, and the mental side of it's really good too, because it's not something to get overwhelmed with or freaked out by. Yeah. It's like just being aware of all these different things that impact your health and your well-being and the type of stress that we're under. And obviously, being a high-performing athlete, we're under very high stress for performing, and the environment that we're in, and how you're trying to optimize that on a daily basis, but then also how that impacts your health overall. And for me, having young kids as well, and the different monitors, different things that you have, just always trying to do the best you can to make sure they're in the best environment possible as well, to grow and to nurture them as best you can, especially when they're so young, and the different types of things that can impact them. So.
And we talk about the 1% though. Like, we always say, like, John will be doing something, or I'll be doing something. We'll look at each other and go, 1% better. And it's not literal. Like, 1% is obviously very small in the broad scheme of things. But like, when you're talking about certain things that we're adding to our routine, 1% is huge. And if you can get 1% better every single day, obviously, that's a pretty common theme and statement. You're doing something all right. And I mean, for me, like, there's pillars, and I don't know if I'm different because I'm a diabetic, because that's always going to be, blood sugar management is always going to be a pillar for me, but forget about that, pretending I'm a normal dude like John right now. You have sleep, which we track. I mean, there's lots of great ways of tracking that, so we have that. Then you have hydration, which both of us are huge Tom Brady fans and huge hydration nerds. We have electrolytes, we have these clunky water bottles that we take everywhere, boys chirp us for it. But those are two massive pillars, and you can make a really strong argument, and hopefully us talking about it helps you add this to your third pillars, is EMFs. And if you have those three things in complete control and locked in to the best of your ability, you're setting yourself up for success. And it doesn't have to be in the NHL or the NFL or the UFC or the NBA, whatever it might be. It's just in your day-to-day life. You just keep stacking wins over and over again, and you're optimizing your life, you're having fun with, like you talked about, your loved ones, and you're just a better person to be around.
I think everyone, certainly in sports and high performance, but in life and society, is realizing just how important sleep is, hydration, nutrition. And if something like AirSec can help that, those pillars, that's the whole goal, because those are so foundational, they're so key for just overall general health, let alone performance. Any little thing that can kind of help you sleep a little bit better, hydrate, and refuel with your nutrition as best you can. I think, we look at that and be like, well, that, why wouldn't we add something like that in if that's just going to help that much, just that little bit, just to be that much more consistent on a day-to-day basis, that you hope that over a long period of time, you see the benefit from that.
And one other thing I wanted to add on that point you just talked about, because it's super important to us, because let's say you have those 3 or 4 pillars, whatever it is, there's a lot of things that are out of our control. And for us, it's the flights, it's the time zones, it's getting sick, it's playing X amount of games in X amount of days, where it's like, doesn't sound actually humanly possible, but we do it. So there's gonna be one thing that's out of whack. And let's talk about sleep just for a second, because sleep to me, if you're not sleeping properly, you're working uphill, man, and you're battling upstream pretty hard. It's not easy to come back from that, and it starts to compound. But when you have everything else aligned, and you are taking care of all the EMF side of things with Aries Tech and with the wearables we have, you are having good nutrition, you are doing all the other modalities, you got the sauna, you got the cold tub, you got the whatever it might be, all of a sudden a little less sleep, it still doesn't help you, but it hurts you less, because you have all the other things you need to get through that. And no one's perfect. Like, we're not going to live, like I said, under a rock and guide us or help protect us from all these EMFs. It's just not realistic. Just like it's not realistic for us to think we're going to get 10 hours of sleep every night. It's not going to happen. But we still have the same expectation, just as you would for me and I would for you as teammates, that I need you to be at your best tomorrow night, even though I know you're gassed. So what are you doing on your end to prepare yourself for that? And in my mind, it's setting up all those other pillars.
Yeah,
and
I think it's a great point, because there's going to be days where you don't sleep well because of the challenges of what the NHL season and being a professional athlete, the grind is all about. And it's not to be like, oh, I'm not optimally in the perfect state to play today. That's just not how it is. You're almost never in that state. So it's I know I've done everything I can to put myself in the best position possible to go out there and perform, and also to give you the knowledge of, maybe I need to adapt things today. I need to change things up because I didn't sleep as good, or we're back-to-back games and I went to bed really late and I had a great nap, or I didn't have a great nap. How am I hydrating? How am I refueling? What am I doing to put myself in the best position possible to succeed and help my team and my teammates? And mentally also, there's a belief in yourself that you create, because you know that you've made the investment and have done the right things on a day-to-day basis consistently, that you can deal with not always being perfect or at your best, or physically, being, a little bit under recovered and things like that, because of the demands of the season and the schedule and just the difficulties that you face. So I think the point that you make about that is massive, because it's inevitable that, really most of the time you're never really truly feeling 100%. You're always kind of doing everything you can, like I said, to put yourself in the best position possible to be at your best, and to make the most of the whatever variables or the situation may be when you're going out there to perform.
And you have investments too, right? So it's like we invest both financially and with our time, which kind of go hand in hand. But the cool thing for whoever's watching this is my message to you would be like, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there to allow you to work through these little ups and downs. I challenge you to go learn about it and do your research and listen to people that are using it and performing at the highest level and how that's impacting them and helping them. Because for us, like, this is just one product of many that we use that is a huge part of our day-to-day routine. And I'm not gonna say I don't know where I'd be without it, because that's just so corny, but I would never think to not have this part of my routine. It's a staple, and I stand by that, just as John does, and that's why we're sitting here talking about it.
And I think we're the same as, you know, we love sports in general. Obviously, we love to play hockey, and we get to do it for a living, and it's the greatest thing ever. But we love sports, and we love seeing what's made other people successful, specifically as athletes, and it's amazing to see different athletes have long careers, play at a very high level, even at ages that is, you know, uncommon or has been less traditional, and the curve starts to bend for them, and just what are the different types of things that they've been doing from a health and performance standpoint to put them in the best position possible. So I would say that's also another avenue that's kind of opened my eyes on, you know, how can I continue to get better as I get older and continue to fine tune myself as an athlete and a hockey player and as a person, because obviously there's been a lot of great athletes that have had tremendous careers and been maybe even more successful as they've gotten older.
So true. Experience is so valuable. And John's such a rare breed because he's been this dialed in since like before it was mainstream to be dialed in. And we were talking about it, but like when he got in the league was a few years before I got in the league, and watching how certain veterans back then, and no disrespect at all, I have the utmost respect for what they did, because it actually was way harder on them. I mean, the going out, the drinking, the lack of nutrition, and certainly they weren't waking up in the morning and standing in front of some red lights, and they weren't putting things on their phone, wearing necklaces, and covering their house in these little cards to protect yourselves from EMF. They weren't doing that stuff, and they were still performing at a high level. So it's come a long way, man, and I feel fortunate to be a part of this generation, because it's fun. It's turned into a hobby to take care of yourself, and you get both sides of it. You're optimizing your performance and you're optimizing your health. So it's a great time to be a professional athlete, I think.
I agree.